Hello everyone. When it comes to alchemy, most modern people will think of fantasy movies like Harry Potter, anime such as Full Metal Alchemist, or Paulo Coelho's novel, The Alchemist. In popular culture, alchemy seems to be nothing more than a product of imagination. Smoky furnaces, glowing potions, and wizards trying to turn lead into gold. Yet not everyone knows that alchemy was once a real system of knowledge, a closed religious philosophical discipline with its own theories, philosophical foundations, and a history spanning thousands of years. Few would expect that figures regarded as symbols of modern rationality, such as Isaac Newton or Carl Jung, also immersed themselves in alchemy, and that many of their great discoveries originated from their very quest for the Philosopher's Stone. The more we explore, the more we realize that many modern sciences, from chemistry and medicine to psychology, were in fact born from the flame of alchemy. In today's article, we will journey through the path of alchemy, from the ancient temples of Egypt to the Library of Alexandria, from Islamic alchemists to Newton's laboratory, from esoteric symbols to the lessons of human transformation itself. Let's begin. The origins of alchemy, ancient Egypt, around 1500 years before Christ, when the pharaohs still reigned, Egypt was a land where people believed that all things possessed a soul. After each annual flood, the Nile would leave behind a layer of fertile black silt. The Egyptians called it Kem or Kemet, meaning the black land. From this very word would later arise alchemy and chemistry, linguistic descendants of this ancient body of knowledge. To the Egyptians, the black soil was not only the source of life, but also a symbol of rebirth. Each year the river died and was reborn, leaving behind traces of an endless cycle, destruction for creation, death for renewal. From these observations of nature, the Egyptians came to realize everything can be transformed. And if one could understand the laws of transformation, one could grasp the secret of life itself. In sacred temples, priests, who were also physicians and the first metallurgists, learned to combine minerals, plants, and crystals. They boiled, filtered, distilled, and recorded every step meticulously in hieroglyphs. Their goal was not only to heal human bodies, but also to preserve the souls of the pharaohs, helping them to be reborn in eternal life. Many ancient carvings describe them creating elixirs of immortality, divine metals, and oils of eternity used in mummification rituals. Each formula was seen as a sacred rite, where religion and science merged into one. To the Egyptians, metallurgy itself was a sacred act. When they melted copper, silver, or gold, they believed they were reenacting the creative journey of Ra, the sun god who brought light from chaos. The fire in the furnace did not only transform metal, it symbolized the inner flame of spiritual enlightenment. Thus, the alchemist was not merely a craftsman, but a spiritual practitioner. They believed, as metal needs fire to become gold, the soul needs trial to become light. In Egyptian spirituality, Thoth was the god of knowledge, transformation, and cosmic order. It was believed that he was the first to write the language of the universe, hieroglyphs capable of expressing everything hidden within matter and spirit. On ancient stone walls, Thoth is often depicted with the head of an ibis, holding a crescent-shaped staff, a symbol of balance between light and darkness, knowledge and mystery. That staff through millennia would evolve into the caduceus, the symbol of modern medicine, proof that science today still carries within it the legacy of ancient alchemy. From the black earth along the Nile, the Egyptians sowed the first seed of alchemy, the belief that all things can be transformed, and that knowledge is the path toward the divine. That belief would travel with merchants and scholars across the Mediterranean, until one day, in the city of Alexandria, it merged with Greek philosophy, giving birth to the golden age of alchemy. The Hellenistic era, when two civilizations united in wisdom after the conquests of Alexander the Great, Egypt entered the Hellenistic age. On the shores of the Mediterranean, Alexander founded Alexandria, the capital of ancient knowledge, where scholars from Athens, Babylon, Persia, and Thebes gathered together. Amid the bustling city, the Library of Alexandria rose like a tower of light, holding hundreds of thousands of manuscripts from around the world. There, Greek philosophy blended with Egyptian religion, Babylonian astronomy, and Indian mathematics, all melting together in humanity's spiritual crucible. Within the corridors, scented with papyrus and resin, alchemy absorbed the breath of Greek philosophy. From Pythagoras, it learned that everything in the universe follows order and vibration, that numbers, too, have souls. From Plato, it inherited the belief that the material world is merely a reflection of a higher world of ideas. From Zeno and the Stoics, it learned the harmony between reason and emotion, between fate and freedom. And from Gnosticism, alchemy found a profound truth, that every human being carries within them a fragment of the divine, and that the alchemical journey is the quest to rediscover that sacred part. Just as metal is refined from crude to pure, human thought itself can be transmuted. Alchemy was no longer merely the art of melting metals. It became the science of the soul, a metaphysical philosophy of transformation and reality. From the union of Greece and Egypt emerged a new symbol, Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes the thrice greatest. A mythical figure, half human and half divine, he was believed to be the fusion of Hermes, the Greek god of wisdom and language, and Thoth, the Egyptian god of knowledge and transformation. The title thrice greatest referred to his mastery of three realms. 1, the master of the material world. 2, the master of the spiritual realm. 3, and the master of the divine. It was said that Hermes left behind the Corpus Hermeticum, a collection of over 20 mystical texts containing profound esoteric wisdom. Within it lies the immortal phrase known by every alchemist, "As above, so below, as within, so without." This saying became the very soul of alchemy. If the universe is a great body, then humanity is its reflection in miniature. To understand oneself is to understand the cosmos. To transform oneself is to transform the world. Under the glow of the lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, people of that era believed they were living at the center of all knowledge. Alchemists, philosophers, physicians, and astrologers sat together, debating the nature of existence. They believed that all religions and sciences, when traced to their essence, led to a single truth. All is one, and one is all. Thus, from the Egyptian temples of the sun, the wisdom of alchemy crossed the Nile, sailed across the Mediterranean, and took on a new form, the philosophy of light and reason. Alexandria became the bridge between science and mysticism, between the sacred fire and rational thought, a place where humanity began to understand that to refine metal is but a metaphor for refining the soul. The Islamic Golden Age. The flame of knowledge in the desert. From the 8th to the 13th century, the Islamic world entered its Golden Age, an era in which science, philosophy, art, and mysticism flourished together. Great centers of learning such as Baghdad, Cairo, Damascus, and Cordoba became the heart of the intellectual world, where the legacies of ancient Greece and Egypt were translated, preserved, and expanded upon. At the House of Wisdom, Bait al-Hikmah in Baghdad, thousands of manuscripts from across the known world were translated into Arabic. Scholars such as Al-Kindi, Avicenna, Ibn Sina, Al-Farabi, and Al-Hazan, Ibn al-Haytham, did not merely copy knowledge, they transformed it into a new torch for humanity. Among these fields, alchemy, once seen purely as mystical art, was redefined as the precursor of experimental science. By the mid-8th century, one name shone brightly across the Arab world: Jabir ibn Hayyan, known in the West as Geber. He is remembered as the father of Arabic chemistry, but to his contemporaries he was more a philosopher, alchemist, and spiritual scientist. Building on Aristotle's theory of the four elements, earth, water, air, and fire, Jabir added four fundamental qualities: hot, cold, moist, and dry. He proposed that every substance in the universe is a specific combination of these qualities in certain proportions. If those proportions could be changed, lead could become gold, and the human soul could be reborn. This was not merely metaphorical. Jabir conducted real experiments, turning alchemy from a mystical pursuit into a concrete scientific method. In ancient Arabic manuscripts, he described in detail the processes of distillation, crystallization, evaporation, and purification, the earliest techniques of experimental chemistry. He designed and refined laboratory tools like the retort, a curved neck flask that became the ancestor of the modern distillation apparatus. Most significantly, Jabir was the first to produce sulfuric acid, nitric acid, and hydrochloric acid, three substances that would later form the foundation of the industrial world. His discoveries transformed metallurgy and medicine, but also introduced a new way of thinking. Knowledge could come from experience and observation, not solely from divine revelation. Jabir was not only a scientist, he was a spiritual alchemist. In his surviving manuscripts, he wrote, "The alchemist does not only transform metals, he transforms his own soul, for in every reaction there is also a reaction within man." For Jabir, the refining of metals in the furnace was a metaphor for the purification of the soul. As metals are cleansed of impurities, so too must the human spirit be purified of desire and ignorance. This was the rebirth of the Hermetic spirit within Islamic philosophy, where science and spirituality were not separate, but two halves of the same truth. While Europe was still bound by dogma, Muslim scholars discussed chemistry, astronomy, geometry, and the soul in the halls of madrasas. They believed that studying the universe was an act of worship, for every law of nature is a whisper of God. Through this worldview, alchemy became a bridge between faith and reason, between religious devotion and scientific discovery. From Baghdad's moonlit deserts, the light of knowledge spread westward, sowing the seeds of the European Renaissance centuries later. When the world thought alchemy had perished with ancient Greece, it was the Muslim scholars who kept its flame alive, transforming it into science. Even today, when we distill water, extract metals, or synthesize medicine, we still employ the very principles Jabir ibn Hayyan wrote down over 1,000 years ago, a lasting testament that alchemy never died. It merely changed form, living on in every flame of the modern laboratory. The medieval age of Europe, when the alchemical flame hid in shadow, the 12th century was a time when Europe lay beneath the vast shadow of the Roman Catholic Church. Religion then was not merely faith, it was absolute power. Anything that strayed beyond the scriptures, philosophy, astrology, or alchemy, was branded as heresy, a challenge to the authority of God. Witch hunts swept across the continent for centuries. Women who brewed medicines, scholars who studied nature, even astronomers who looked too deeply into the heavens. Any could be condemned to the flames for knowing more than one should. Yet in that darkness, alchemy did not die. It hid itself, like a seed sleeping in the soil, waiting for the return of light. To survive, European alchemists spoke in symbols. Instead of writing formulas, they drew the Ouroboros, the serpent devouring its own tail, symbol of death and rebirth. Instead of describing chemical reactions, they told of the union of the king and the queen, the marriage of spirit and matter. Instead of naming mercury and sulfur, they wrote in sacred poetry and veiled allegory. The alchemical manuscripts of this age were labyrinths of imagery, half science, half mysticism, as though their authors wished never to be fully understood. Alchemy became the art of concealment, a means of survival, and a test for those wise enough to decode its mysteries. Amid this age of fear, one monk dared to walk the line between theology and the occult, St. Albertus Magnus, known as Albert the Great. He was the teacher of Thomas Aquinas, the greatest theologian of the Church, yet he himself was devoted to Greek philosophy and natural experiment. Albertus did not deny faith. He asked only one simple question. If God is the creator of the universe, then is not the study of the universe a way to understand him? In the cold stone chambers of the monastery at Cologne, Albertus melted metals, distilled essences, and recorded his findings with care. For him, these were not attempts to make gold, but to show that the hand of God revealed itself through natural law. To Albertus, alchemy was not against the faith. It was another language of the divine. But not all shared his vision. To the Church, every act of transformation was seen as interference with the work of God. Books of alchemy were confiscated and burned. Geometric diagrams were condemned as witchcraft. The alchemists hid in monasteries, cloaking their wisdom in symbols, passing knowledge through secret manuscripts. And yet the flame of knowledge never went out. It smoldered in stone vaults, under candlelight, amid whispered prayers. And when the Renaissance dawned, the seed buried in the dark would bloom once more radiant than ever before. During these shadowed centuries, alchemy transformed itself, from laboratory to symbol, from chemical reaction to spiritual metaphor. Those who worked the furnaces of the soul, knowingly or not, laid the first foundations of modern science, seeking truth within faith. And though they were called heretics, they were the keepers of Hermes's lamp, the light that would one day shine again upon humanity when the long night had passed. The Renaissance, when alchemy turned into light. After centuries shrouded in the darkness of the Middle Ages, Europe finally awakened. The dawn light poured over the red rooftops of Florence, illuminated ancient Greek statues unearthed from the ground, and on scholars' desks, manuscripts in Latin and Arabic were opened once again. This was the Renaissance, the time when humanity realized that knowledge was not a sin, but the path back to God. The movement ad fontes, back to the sources, spread across Europe. Western scholars, after centuries of prohibition, began to rediscover the philosophical heritage of Greece and Rome. The Hermetica manuscripts, along with the translations of Islamic scholars. Ideas once burned and forbidden were now read aloud in academies, copied, commented upon, and taught publicly. Alchemy, once the language of darkness, had become a symbol of enlightenment, a fusion of philosophy, science, and art. Unlike in the Middle Ages, the alchemists of the Renaissance were not secluded monks. They were polymaths, philosophers, physicians, painters, engineers, and architects. That spirit shone brightest in geniuses such as Leonardo da Vinci, Marsilio Ficino, Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa, and most notably, Paracelsus. For them, alchemy was not merely the transmutation of metals, but the art of transforming the soul, a way for humans to understand the creative mechanisms of the cosmos and to mirror them within themselves. In the mid-16th century, Philippus Aureolus Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim, known as Paracelsus, rose as a blazing star in the European sky of knowledge. He shattered the classical medicine of Galen, which was based on the theory of the four humours, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile, and replaced it with a new medicine grounded in alchemy and experimental chemistry. To him, all matter contained an inner essence, and it was this essence that was the true medicine. Paracelsus was the first to propose the concept of the active ingredient, the foundation of modern pharmacology. He said, "All things are poison, and nothing is without poison. Only the dose makes a thing not a poison." That seemingly simple statement transformed the entire field of clinical medicine. Paracelsus, da Vinci, Agrippa, and Ficino all shared one belief. Man is a mirror of the universe, the microcosm reflecting the macrocosm. Thus, to understand man is to understand the universe. To transform oneself is to transform the world. They united mathematics, music, astronomy, painting, and alchemy into a single, harmonious vision of existence. In Da Vinci's studio, anatomical drawings and studies of flight were arranged like sacred alchemical rituals. In Paracelsus's laboratory, the fire beneath the distillation flask burned alongside the flame of philosophy. Hence, Renaissance alchemy was no longer occult mysticism. It was the declaration of human intellect. The Renaissance was the moment when humanity looked inward and realized God resides in the mind, not only in the church. The alchemists led humankind from the fear of sin toward faith in their own creative power. And from that very spirit, the first seeds of modern science were sown, through experiments, observation, and measurement. From the alchemical flame, the flame of science was born, the modern era. From metal to the soul, the 17th century marked the dawn of the scientific revolution in Europe. The sky of knowledge began to brighten with the stars of Copernicus, Galileo, and Kepler. Yet the ancient flame of alchemy began to fade. Meanwhile, the wisdom of the East flowed into Europe through translations and trade, heralding a new dawn of reason. As reason rose to dominance, the mysteries of the cosmos were dissected under microscopes and translated into mathematical formulas. However, even in this age of facts and equations, some still perceived the divine spark within science, and they continued the alchemical journey in a new form. In the 17th century, Robert Boyle, an English nobleman and devout Christian, was regarded as the founder of modern chemistry. Yet behind his famous book, The Skeptical Chymist, 1661, the work that gave birth to chemistry, Boyle still held faith in the spiritus, the sacred essence hidden within matter. He believed that every chemical reaction was not merely a material transformation, but also the movement of divine energy within the universe. Boyle, like many scientists of his time, was still an alchemist, learning to speak in the language of science. But while Boyle still spoke cautiously in symbols, Newton dove headlong into the forbidden heart of the art. No one embodied this intersection more profoundly than Isaac Newton. To the world, Newton is the symbol of rationality, the father of classical mechanics, the man who understood the universe through mathematics. But behind that portrait, in his small room at Trinity College, Newton spent over 30 years studying alchemy, far longer than he worked on the Principia Mathematica. Newton believed that the universe was a living organism, and that all matter was merely the outer shell of the divine spirit in motion. Thousands of handwritten pages, deciphered centuries later, spoke of Mercurius, the supreme essence, and the sacred language of creation. After reading these manuscripts, economist John Maynard Keynes famously declared, "Newton was not the first of the scientists, he was the last of the magicians." With Newton's passing, the age of mystery dimmed. Reason took the throne. By the 18th century, the Age of Enlightenment swept through Europe. Knowledge was now to be measured, proven, and quantified. The belief that lead could become gold was dismissed as superstition. Alchemy was exiled from academies, buried in dusty tomes. Yet beneath the laboratories of reason, the old fire smoldered, its language turning inward from matter to meaning. In the shadows of rationalism, small flames still burned. The Rosicrucians saw metal transmutation as a metaphor for inner enlightenment. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn viewed the transformation of lead into gold as the soul's journey from sin to purity. The Freemasons acknowledged their alchemical roots, teaching that man must refine himself to become the perfect stone in the divine architecture of creation. Through these brotherhoods, the old language of symbols endured. In darkness, alchemy became a philosophy of spiritual transformation. From matter to spirit, from the darkness of the unconscious to the light of awareness. Like Newton, Boyle, and Carl Jung, all were walking the same path, to transform the outer world by understanding the inner one. In the end, alchemy did not vanish. It evolved, hidden now in the crucibles of modern science. The figures who completed the alchemical path, has anyone in history truly reached the ultimate end of alchemy, the final stage of the great work? The answer is, perhaps a few. Yet most of their existences remain veiled in myth, with evidence so faint that we cannot be sure whether they truly lived or were symbols shaped by legend. Below are some of the figures who are said to have completed the magnum opus, even creating the Philosopher's Stone and the elixir of life. Hermes Trismegistus stands as both the beginning and the ultimate symbol of the entire Western alchemical tradition. He is often called the Laozi of the West, the author of the Hermetica, a collection of sacred texts that laid the foundation for Hermeticism, the mystical philosophy blending Egyptian theology, Greek philosophy, and Babylonian astrology. No one knows whether Hermes ever truly existed. Some say he was the reincarnated spirit of Thoth, the Egyptian god of knowledge and language, who wrote the Book of Life. Others believe he was Hermes of Greece, the messenger of the gods, the one who walked freely between heaven and earth, between light and shadow. In symbolic language, Hermes represents human intellect united with the Logos, the cosmic reason. He did not turn lead into gold, he turned ignorance into wisdom. He is often depicted holding the emerald tablet, Tabula Smaragdina, engraved with the immortal words, "As above, so below." This simple phrase encapsulates the essence of all alchemical philosophy. Everything in the universe, from the stars above to the human soul within, mirrors one another. If Hermes is the metaphysical archetype, then Nicolas Flamel is the living legend of alchemy. A modest French scribe of the 14th century, Flamel was an unremarkable man until after his death, when countless writings emerged claiming he had successfully created both the Philosopher's Stone and the elixir of life. In his supposed work, Livre des Figures Hiéroglyphiques, it is said that Flamel discovered an ancient manuscript called the Book of Abraham the Jew, filled with coded instructions for completing the magnum opus. After years of study, he was said to have succeeded, not only in transforming metals into gold, but also in transforming himself into an immortal being. Legends claim that his tomb, as well as that of his wife, were found empty, and that his old house at 51 Rue de Montmorency, Paris, still standing today, once held his laboratory. Some say Flamel never died. He simply departed the material world. In alchemical lore, Flamel symbolizes the seeker who has completed the journey from matter to spirit, from mortal to myth. He is the witness of transformation, the embodiment of spiritual transmutation. The name Artephius appears in medieval manuscripts as early as the 12th century. He is credited as the author of The Secret Book of Artephius, in which he claims, "I have lived for many ages by the aid of the elixir. Yet I sought not the immortality of the body, but the immortality of the soul." Artephius professed to have completed the magnum opus, creating an elixir that allowed him to live for over 1,000 years, though not to attain full spiritual perfection as Flamel supposedly did. In mystical circles, he came to represent the one between two worlds, the figure who had opened the door between matter and spirit, yet had not fully crossed it. Thus, Artephius is the model of the alchemist in progress, not the destination, but the pilgrim. He is not divine, but a testament to faith, perseverance, and the transformative journey itself. Together, Hermes, Flamel, and Artephius, whether real or symbolic, embody the same eternal truth. Alchemy is not the art of transforming matter, but the journey of perfecting the soul. Hermes is the principle, the enlightener of knowledge. Flamel is the practitioner, the one who attains complete transmutation. Artephius is the traveler, the seeker still walking the path. These three form the triumvirate of alchemy, symbolizing the three stages of human evolution: seeking, practicing, uniting. The great work, in the end, is not about gold, but about light, and those who pursue it are not chemists of metal, but alchemists of the soul. Alchemy in the modern age. At the end of the 19th century, in the heart of an England intoxicated by science and progress, a group of scholars and mystics founded the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the Order of the Golden Dawn. They believed that alchemy was the bridge between the cosmos and the spirit. Through secret initiations, members learned to transform themselves using the 4 classical elements: earth, water, fire, and air, symbols of the 4 levels of the human psyche. In the outer order, initiates were taught to refine the mind through rituals and symbols. In the inner order, they practiced inner journeys, astrology, and spiritual alchemy, the art of self-recreation, the transmutation of the soul as lead becomes gold. Prominent members such as Aleister Crowley and William Butler Yeats spread Hermetic philosophy throughout Western culture, into literature, art, and the currents of modern esotericism. Although the original order dissolved in the early 20th century, its descendants still exist today. Small lights preserving the flame of ancient wisdom within the modern world. Founded in 1912 in the United States by R. Swinburne Clymer, the Rosicrucian fraternity claimed descent from the alchemists of the Middle Ages. But they did not seek to transmute metals. They sought to transmute the self. At the heart of their teachings lies the principle of correspondence. As above, so below. The Hermetic axiom that became the pillar of their philosophy. They taught that every human being contains the 3 alchemical essences: salt, the body; sulfur, the spirit; and mercury, the soul. Only when these 3 are perfectly balanced can true transformation occur. Through meditation and contemplation, initiates learned to distill their inner world, crystallize consciousness, and refine the gold of the soul, the kind of gold untouched by time or decay. They believed that every person is an alchemist of their own being, though most never realize it. In the 20th century, as psychology emerged as a new science, Carl Gustav Jung recognized that alchemy is the mirror of the human unconscious. He saw in the ancient alchemical texts a map of inner transformation, a symbolic description of the evolution of the psyche. The alchemist's journey, he said, moves through 4 great stages: nigredo, blackness; the darkness of despair, confusion, and crisis; the dissolution of old forms; albedo, whiteness; purification, the washing away of illusions and outdated beliefs; citrinitas, yellowness; illumination, the discovery of inner light within the darkness; rubedo, redness; completion, the union of opposites when the soul achieves wholeness. Jung explained that psychological suffering mirrors these same processes. When we face loss or failure, we enter nigredo, the furnace of transformation. When we release what no longer serves us, we experience albedo. When insight and clarity arise, that is citrinitas. And when we accept all of ourselves, both shadow and light, we arrive at rubedo, the gold of the soul. Alchemy thus teaches, every crisis is a crucible, every pain is fuel, and every human being is a sacred experiment. When you feel lost, it does not mean you have failed. It means you are being heated. When you suffer, you are dissolving in order to be reborn. There is no rubedo without nigredo. In the modern age, alchemy is no longer about furnaces and alembics. It is about the alchemy of the heart. It is a living metaphor for personal evolution, turning chaos into order, fear into strength, the ordinary into the eternal. Alchemy, in the end, is not the science of matter. It is the art of awakening. It does not seek to master nature, but to mirror it within the human soul. From Hermes to Jung, from the ancient masters to you, the lineage of alchemy has never been broken. For each time a human being dares to look into their own darkness and finds light within it, a new alchemist is born. Gold does not lie in the ore, but in perception. Hermetic axiom. And that was the full story. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Stories and Documents, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any future episodes like this one. Thank you for watching, and goodbye for now.